Hi everybody, welcome back to the Coderoom. Okay, up until now, we've taught you all about CSS, what it looks like, and we've even shown you two ways to incorporate that CSS into your HTML document. The first way was inline styling, and then the second way was using the style tag. Today, we're going to use the most common way that people deal with CSS, and that's moving your CSS to an entirely separate file, okay, and then referencing that file in the HTML document that you want it to apply to. Okay, so let's do that. All right, so back to where we were. We had just learned about the style tag, and what we had done is we had moved everything into a separate location inside the style tag, okay? Now, what you can do is you can actually move all of this into a completely separate file, and what's nice about that is you're really not mixing any code, okay? So you have your CSS styling in one file, and then you have your HTML structure in another file, okay? So let's see how we do that. All right, I just want to remind you what we're dealing with here. And what we have is in our file structure under my first website, okay, we have our index pages, our contact page, our about page. And then we put all the images under an images folder, okay? Now what we're going to do is we're going to create a brand new file under here, okay? So in Sublime, you can go File, New File, okay? And then you want to save that. Now make sure, again, you're under my first website, and we're just going to call it style.css, okay? There we go. So now we have this new file. So you have your HTML pages, and you have this new file called style.css, okay? Now, what style.css looks like, okay, and the code that you can put in here is just the CSS code that you had from the HTML document, okay? Not the actual style tags themselves, okay? So here we have the style tags, so we don't need those, but all the code that's inside there you can grab, okay? So let's grab all that code, and we'll cut it, and go to style.css and paste it, okay? Now the indenting is a little off, so let's just fix all that indenting. All right, so the indenting has all been fixed, okay? And then we just want to save that, okay? So any CSS external file that you create, you only put the CSS code in there. That means the selectors, the properties, and their values, okay? That's the only thing you want in there. All right, so we'll save that. Now, over on the HTML side, you need to tell this document, if you want to apply that CSS to this document, you need to link to that file, okay? So how do we do that? So let's get rid of these style tags. We don't need those anymore. That's from the old way of doing it. What we do is we actually put a link tag, okay? So put link, okay? And this is a self-closing tag. And this has a couple of attributes on it, okay? The first attribute is describing the relationship between the external file and this document, okay? So rel for relationship. And the relationship is that it is a style sheet, okay? Second, you're going to specify, well, what type of style sheet is this, okay? Like, how are we interpreting the text that's in there, okay? So you're going to say type, and it's text/CSS, okay? So it's basic CSS in text format, okay? And then the last thing you're going to specify is where does that file actually sit, okay? Relative to this file, okay? So the index.html, all right, if we look back at our web projects, my first website, is at the same level as style.css, okay? So just like when we were doing images and we referenced, you know, images/kcl, or even when we were referencing other pages, okay? If they're on the same folder, you just say the file itself. So style.css, okay? Let's save that. Go back to our website, and if we've done everything correctly, this should actually appear the same. So let's refresh it. Refreshed, and there we go. It's the exact same as it was before, okay? And let's just make sure this is actually working. Let's go into our style.css and change something in there and see if it changes over here. So for the headers, okay, why don't we change those back to blue? So save that. Refresh the page, and they're changed to blue, okay? Now this, again, is the most common way to deal with CSS. So now what you do is anytime you're changing the structure, you go into your HTML document and you change the structure, okay? Anytime you want to change the style, you flip over to your style sheet and you code it here, okay? Now I did notice just one mistake that I had here. I still had the H1 styling on pricing, so I'm just gonna remove that. All right, and that should all be good. So we'll save this, refresh it, and there we go, okay? So let's take this idea a little further and let's add another style, okay? Okay, so let's say all the images, we want them to have a height of 100 pixels, okay? So what we're gonna do is go over to the style, add an image selector, and say the height is 200 pixels. Save that, come back here, and there we go. All the images have been scaled to 200 pixel height. All right, so that's how you can deal with CSS in a completely external file, and you can really separate your thinking, and you can even have different people working on the styling and one working on the structure, okay? You'll learn in future episodes that we can actually separate this into multiple CSS files and import them all into the pages that we want. All right, so that's the most common way to deal with CSS. We'll see you guys in the next video.